and it's past the scheduled start time, so let's get started. Since the last regular meeting on the 11th of April, we've received 3 documents. These are in the agenda. The next meeting will be on the 20th of June. The administration has proposed 2 items for discussion. One is the MTR fare adjustment for 2014. The other is the franchises of City Bus Limited, franchise for Hong Kong Island and Cross Harbour routes, and New Lantau Bus Company 1973 Limited. So 2 items. And some time ago, many from the transport sector, taxis and minibus operators, they raised an issue recently about some goods friends snatching business from them. Now, I'd like to seek your views, members. I plan to include that item for our next meeting. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Yes, I support you, Mr. Chairman. On the MTR fare adjustment, we passed a motion before that for the penalty system, it must be targeted at the directors of NTR, CR, and also its senior management. So we should have a system in place. Can we ask them to provide a paper? Yes, so we'll ask the administration to respond in one go. If there are there's no objection, members, then so these were the 3 items for the next meeting on the 20th of June, Friday, 10:45. But actually on that day, I have other engagements. I'm proposing to defer the meeting to the 23rd of June, Monday, 8:30 a.m. If members have no objection, we will inform the administration and ask them to prepare all the documents, okay? Next, item 3 on the agenda. Replacement of rear traffic control system for Tai Po and North Districts. Can we invite the administration in, please? Attending the meeting for this item, we have Ms. Cordelia Lam, Principal Assistant Secretary for Transport and Housing Transport, and Mr. Learn Tak Fai, Assistant Commissioner of Transport, and also Mr. Lee Chi Chiu, Chief Engineer, Traffic Control Transport Department. Welcome. Ms. Lam, when you're ready, please start with your introduction. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. We're here today to seek members' views on the proposal to replace the existing area traffic control ATC system in Tai Po and North Districts. The ATC system uses a central computer to coordinate the operations of on-street traffic signals on a regional basis. It aims at providing a series of green signals for vehicles passing through various signalized junctions so as to achieve smooth traffic flow by minimizing stops and delays of vehicles at traffic signals. The ATC system also allows operators in the traffic control center to monitor and adjust the on-street traffic signals timing in real time, having regard to the traffic conditions, particularly to alleviate traffic congestion arising from major traffic incidents. Currently, there are 4 ATC systems for different parts of Hong Kong. For this item, we propose to replace the ATC system in Tai Po and North Districts. To maintain the smooth traffic in Tai Po and North Districts, we need to have reliable operation of traffic signals. For the Tai Po and North Districts, TN districts system has been commissioned since 2005. It has a serviceable life cycle of about 10 to 15 years. By 2018, it would have operated for about 13 to 15 years. For the TPNN ATC system, its maintenance cost is mounting, and it's also increasing difficult because some of the faulty parts are out of date. It's hard to find replacements. So we plan to replace the systems. We believe the new system will be more reliable and breakdowns and faults will be reduced. As for the necessary spare parts for regular maintenance, it will be easier to purchase, so it will help to reduce the estimated recurrent expenditure. Also, for the new ATC, it will use advanced microprocessor and electronic components, and so the system will be more energy efficient. The signal controllers are also designed to be compatible with the LED traffic signals, which were introduced in recent years. It will facilitate more accurate reporting of LED signal failures. The estimated cost of the proposal is $32.2 million. The breakdown is in the paper. I will not go through it. By the third quarter of 2014, we could start the project and it could be completed by early 2018. With members' endorsement, we will then seek funding approval from the Finance Committee to implement this proposal. Now we welcome comments on the proposal, and we also ask you for your support. And my colleagues will give you some answers too on technical aspects. 3 members have raised their hands: Mr. Poon Siu-ping, Mr. Gary FAN, and Mr. Wu Chi-wai. 5 minutes each. Mr. Poon Siu-ping. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In principle, I support the replacement of the system, but I'd like to ask a few questions. First, originally, the life cycle of the system is about 10 to 15 years. What about a new system? What is the serviceable life cycle? I'd like more information there. Secondly, the replacement of the system is to reduce the maintenance costs and repair costs. So what are the repair and maintenance costs every year? For the Tai Po and North District ATC, there's one ATC, but it said that there are 3 other parts in Hong Kong where we have the ATC. And you say for the spare parts, you have difficulty sourcing them. So for the other systems, do you have the same difficulties, and when do you plan to replace the other systems in other districts? Thank you for the question. The life cycle is usually 10 to 15 years for such systems. But of course, the actual life cycle of each system depends on the actual situation. But then in general, it's between 10 to 15 years. But at the same time, we have to look at the individual manufacturers. For the Tai Po and North District ATC, for instance, the central processor unit has stopped production, so that's why it's more difficult to find parts for repair. The maintenance cost is about $6 million per year. We expect that if we replace the new system, the maintenance cost will be about $5 million, so a saving of $1 million per year as far as recurrent expenditure is concerned. As for the other ATC systems in other parts of Hong Kong, they were replaced not too long ago, so it's not the same problem as with the Tai Po and North District ATC system. That is, the manufacturer has stopped producing the original model of the CPU. So for the other systems, they could still operate for some time, but of course we'll closely monitor such systems. If necessary, we'll replace them. Mr. Poon. Now, as you replace the new system, you expect to use it just for 10 to 15 years. Can it really cope with the development in the North District? The new system, can you ensure that? Mr. Leung, that's not going to be a problem, because for area traffic control system, usually there's capacity for expansion. That is the number of signalized junctions the system can control, and so on. Well, there is flexibility. For instance, for each server, for each of the server, it has some upper limit on the number of signalized junctions it can control. But then for the number of traffic signals linked to the server, if that's about to reach capacity, we could add more servers. There's no limit to the number of servers we could add. So in some districts, if there is any development and there is need to add more signals, signalized junctions, for instance, then our system could more than cope. That's not going to be a problem.
The member raised the issue that you should pay attention to the development of Northeast NT, and then you might have to enhance the functions of the system. Mr. Gary FAN, thank you, Chairman. In principle, I think the paper has to do with regular or routine replacement of traffic systems. I have several concerns. The paper says that there are 4 major ATC systems, and they have to be replaced according to different schedules. I'm concerned that during the replacement process, I'm concerned about the computer software, because they may have to be replaced in, say, 3 to 5 years' time. So would you be updating the technology so that the system functions can be enhanced, so that you can do a better job in controlling the signaling time, the timing of the signals? Now, apart from replacing the signals when there are failures. Now, this system has to do with the GP and North, and the traffic signal number accounts for around 10% of the total number all over Hong Kong. Now, towards the bottom of the paper, it says that there are now 4 ATC systems. Is it because of some historical reasons that the Tai Po and North District comprise one system? The largest one, I believe, should be the Hong Kong system, and then followed by the Kowloon one. Now, they have there is a large population in these 2 areas. So does the Transport Department have any plans to amalgamate the systems or consolidate the systems with the aim of ultimately enhancing the efficiency of the systems? So I'm talking about general principles here, so that the overall efficiency of the system can be boosted. Mr. Leung? In the replacement process, we would be making efforts to make sure that it works best. When we're replacing the system is still going to be operated, so it won't pose heavy impact on the existing traffic. And we will do it, work on the traffic signals one by one. We will first install the central computer system, and then we will link it to the travel signals on street. But we will not do it at one go. We will do it one by one. So the old system will be replaced one by one, and we would carry out all sorts of testing to ensure that it operates smoothly. So we would pay attention to that. This is not the first time that we are carrying out replacement of the systems. We've done it several times before. The ATC system started operating in the 70s, and actually it's now the 3rd generation and even the 4th generation of such systems. So we do have a wealth of experience in doing that. Now, there are 4 ATC systems operating. Well, that's been going on for a long time. When we first launched the system, we did it district by district, and we didn't do it. We didn't cover all districts, 1,800 signals all at one go. Following our procurement procedures and the development of technology, we now have 4 ATC systems. So in the future development, we'll try to enhance the compatibility among the different systems. So if we are going to replace or procure new systems, we will make sure that there are enough competitors and that there will not be monopoly. And we would really pay attention to the compatibility among the different systems. So the different systems supplied by different suppliers will be compatible with the systems of other suppliers. So we make sure that the different systems can be linked up with each other. So we will allow more flexibility in procuring the systems in the future. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, Chairman. I would like the administration to clarify this. When you talk about ATC system, are you talking about the replacement of computer hardware? Does it mean that there will not be civil engineering works carried out on the street signals? It's just that the signals will be linked up to the TD's server. I am not clear from the paper that when you talk about replacing the system, are you installing a brand new system, or is it the case that the computer hardware or the computer operating system of the existing signals have become obsolete and you have to move to a new platform? Well, I would like to know more about this. Now, for these 4 ATC systems are going to be replacement projects. Is it the case? If not, I'm worried that you may have to install a new OS this time, and then in the future you may have to install a separate set of OS. Now, if we have to move from one programming platform to another, then because the computer costs are going down, then it may facilitate your work. For the system that you are going to replace, will it be linked to the other 3 or 4 ATC systems? And how is the linkage to be done? And now, if there are linkages, how is the central computer going to control all these linkages? And also, can you disseminate information to motorists through the system? Say if there are failures with the traffic signals, can you disseminate information immediately to the motorists? And if travel signals go out of order, do you have a service performance pledge on when you can finish the repair works? When we talk about replacement system, it includes both the hardware and the software. Now, computer hardware will age over time, and repair works have to be carried out more frequently. Now, for the system in Tai Po and North District, it's unique in that the manufacturer stopped producing the central computer system that is in use, and it is difficult for us to replace the spare parts. So in the replacement process, we're not just replacing the spare parts, but rather the entire system, and we will adopt the latest technology. Let me cite a simple example. Several years ago, starting from several years ago, we are replacing the traffic lights with energy-efficient LED traffic signals. And the traditional design is the tungsten bulbs and lamps. And after the replacement with LED signals, then that makes it possible for the central to monitor real-time whether there are failures with the signals. Now, if tungsten lights or LED lights go out of order, they present 2 different scenarios. So we have made adjustments to our existing system so that when LED signals go out of order or malfunction, then we'll be able to detect them in real time. Now, as the system was not originally designed to accommodate that, we still have some discrepancies in terms of timing in detecting the failures. But when we replace the system, then we'll be able to really update the functions so that all traffic signal failures can be detected real time. So it's not a sort of one by one replacement system per se. The ATC system is a rather specialized system. So in the market, there aren't that many suppliers on the market. And unlike our personal computers, we don't have to really replace a part so frequently. Of course, over time and with the development of technology, new functions may be added. But generally speaking, the serviceable life cycle is 10 to 15 years. And during this period, we don't have to frequently carry out major replacement work. Of course, there may be minor replacement or adjustment works needed. So we will be doing that during the life cycle of the system. So we would ensure that the system will function properly and meet with the needs of the time. Now, as for the 4 ATC systems, they operate rather independently. For each district, the relevant central computer will control the traffic signals within that particular district. So it will not be the case that the Hong Kong system will control the signals in Kowloon. That will not happen. But for every system, we'll have a standby system in case when there are failures with the central system. The standby system will start working automatically. Or as for Mr. Wu's suggestion on how to better disseminate information, actually we've been studying that, and one of the considerations is that when we collect on-street information on, say, speed vehicles are traveling, well, we will disseminate such information as needed. Mr. Wu, 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. My question is really on what are the linkages among these 4 different systems. I'm not asking you, the Hong Kong system, to control the signals in the Kowloon area. That you have to be very clear about that. For these 4 different systems, are they using different computer software? Mr. Leung, as I said, there are not that many suppliers for these ATC systems in the market. There are 2 major suppliers. The supplier may be supplying different versions at different times. So it depends on when the system is really installed. Maybe we are purchasing the same system, but the versions may be different. But then, if they come from the same supplier, there would not be any problem with compatibility. The 4 systems are actually provided by 2 different suppliers. Now, even for the same supplier, because we are installing the systems at different times, the systems may not be 100% similar. So that's the difference among the 4 systems. Well, he hasn't answered my question about the linkages among the four systems. I think the systems operate independently. I don't think we need to address the problem of linkages, right? Would the information be uploaded onto the internet? No. That's really for controlling the traffic signals. There is another system for providing traffic information, not the system, right? Yes, Miss Elizabeth Kwok.
Dr. Elizabeth Kwok. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the replacement of the system, apart from replacing the LED that you mentioned, in terms of the operation or the management of the system, is there any enhancement in any way? Any difference in the operation of the systems? Yes, the system will be upgraded in that sense, because with the latest software, the operating interface is more user-friendly. So for operators, it will be easier for them to learn to operate the system. So at the operational level, efficiency could be enhanced. And when there are any faults, operators will be able to respond more quickly. So we're using the latest technology and operating interface. Are there any functions that are now available but not before? Any new functions? Now, for our system, the functions are rather comprehensive, but then there may be some minor adjustment or refining, as I said. Like monitoring the LED traffic signals, the new system will be more accurate, and the reporting of faults would be more efficient. Have you compared our system with the traffic signaling systems in other advanced cities? Where are we? Are we, with the new system, will we be in the forefront, or are we behind others? Is there anything that our systems can't do where the systems in other places could? Mr. Leung? Well, I won't say we are leading others, but definitely we're among the top in terms of the use of area traffic control system. In terms of the coverage, we're among the top few around the world. And then in terms of the fault rates, we also doing very well in terms of keeping the system operating well. That means in terms of uptime, we're doing fine. And then on the road surface sensors, there, our ratio is comparatively lower, because if we want to install sensors on the road surface, we have to dig up the road and then may disrupt traffic. That's why for busy roads, we have to be careful in planning such works. But anyway, that's the target of our development. We would like to install more sensors on the roads, and that will allow for even more real-time response for the ATC system. So adjustment to traffic signals will be more accurate and responsive. In turn, that would be better for relieving traffic congestion. Now, for the sensors or the adjustment of traffic signals, is it manually operated or is it automatic? If we have road sensors on road surfaces, then the green phase of traffic signals could be adjusted in real time in response to the traffic condition at the junction. So it's not manual, it's automatic, is it? Yes, it is automatic. For Tai Po and the North District ATCs to be replaced, what about the other ATCs, will they be replaced as well? You mean, do you have a time frame for the replacement of the 4 ATC systems? Well, we don't have a specific time frame yet, but we can imagine that in the next 3 years, other systems may need to be replaced too. Could you let us have a paper? Just a rough time frame will do. Okay, if there are no further questions, can I wrap up discussion on this item? Thank you for coming to the meeting. Let's move on to the next item. Outlying island ferry services and fare adjustments.
我哋請相關嘅官員入嚟。
Can we invite the administration in, please? Attending the meeting for this item, we have Mr. Yao Sheng Mo, Undersecretary for Transport and Housing, Mr. Jose Yam, Principal Assistant Secretary for Transport and Housing Transport, Mr. Albert Su, Assistant Commissioner of the Transport Department, and Mr. Ken Wong, Chief Transport Officer of the Transport Department. Welcome. Undersecretary, when you're ready, you could start with the presentation on the paper. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Teng Ka-pil and Mr. Ben Chen have put forward some suggestions. They've also written to us. So today we would like to report to members on the matter of extension of licenses, fare adjustments and service level of the 6 major outlying island ferry routes. Now, it is the government's established policy that public transport services should be run by the private sector in accordance with prudent commercial principles to achieve operating efficiency. But for the 6 major outlying island ferry routes, they are not financially viable, but they are the only means of transport for outlying islands. That's why the government believes there is need to give certain protections to these routes in planning these outlying ferry routes. First of all, our principle is that public transport services should be run by the private sector in accordance with prudent on commercial principles. 2, the need to maintain long-term financial viability and fare stability, and C, the need for the government to use public money prudently, and the passengers should bear appropriate fare responsibilities. In May last year, we briefed this panel on the results of the midterm review on the provision of special helping measures as HMs to the 6 major outlying island ferry routes since 2011, and the proposed arrangements for the next licensing period, that is from mid-2014 to mid-2015, including based on the major principles set out in paragraph 2 above, the HM's policy would be maintained and the financial cap would be adjusted upwards with regard to rising costs. B, noting that the services provided by the incumbent ferry operators were generally satisfactory, and then will extend the current licenses. C, the government will carry out stringent gatekeeping duties if fare increase applications are submitted. Now, the panel supported the recommendations, and the Finance Committee approved a commitment of about $190 million in July last year for provision of HMs to the 6 ferry routes, with a view to enhancing the long-term financial viability of these routes and alleviating the burden of fare increase on passengers. The administration received license extension applications from the 2 incumbent operators of the 6 routes in August last year. Having regard to the results of the midterm reviews, actually the operators have said that there's been an increase in costs. There is still pressure for fare increase, and they're proposing fare increase of about 10% due to persistently high fuel price and significant increase in labor remunerations and so on. And the administration has taken into account the following factors when considering the above fare increase applications, including financial performance of ferry operators, service performance, increase in operating costs, public affordability and acceptability of the proposed increase, and other measures adopted by ferry operators to improve financial performance. The fares of the 6 routes take effect 3 years ago. In the past 2.5 years, that is from July 2011 to January 2014, the composite consumer price index has increased by 11.1%. And the median monthly household income of domestic households has increased by 12.5% in the past 2 years, from the third quarter of 2011 to the third quarter of 2013. The Transport Department has carefully examined in detail the financial information and data submitted by the ferry operators, and it's also taken into account the SHMs expected to be reimbursed to ferry operators based on actual expenses in the coming 3 years, with a view to alleviating the burden of fare increase on passengers as far as possible. Having carefully considered the above factors, the TD approved the fare increase of about 5 to 6% in the extended 3-year license period commencing from mid-2014 by the operators of the 6 fare routes. The fare increase rates have taken effect either on the 1st of April, will take effect on the 1st of July this year. The increase approved is about half of that proposed by the operators. It's also lower than the aggregate increase of the composite consumer price index in the past 2.5 years, and the median and the increase in the median monthly household income. So we believe the increase is moderate. Now, we understand local residents have put forward various views. For example, the capacity of Central to Changchao during peak hours, and also new Changchao to Aberdeen service, and so on. The TD is actively following up on all the various proposals with the related departments. We are now happy to answer questions from members. Thank you. 6 members have raised their hands: Mr. Wong Kwok-hing, Poon Chiu Ping, Gary FAN Kwok-wai, Bill, Lee Chak Yan, Michael Tian, Kwok Ka-ki, Ben Chen. 8 members. 4 minutes each, okay? Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Mr. Chairman, on the ferry services, there's need for government subsidy. In past transport panel meetings, we passed motions. Now, like for MTRCL, it's seen huge expansion because the government has subsidized its operation with land and other resources, and this is all taxpayers' money. So the government has helped to support the development of the MTRCL. For outlying island residents, they have to rely solely on ferry services. If we go entirely by commercial principles, it won't work. That's why it's necessary for the administration to provide special helping measures and other policies to support ferry services. And I think the government should do more. So I have a number of questions for the administration. First of all, Changchao to Aberdeen's ferry service. Any progress, please, on the commencement of the service? Is there a time frame? That's the first question. Second question, development of properties on piers so ferry companies could bring in more revenue. Would you review that practice? Thirdly, the license period is now for 3 years, and as you know, 3 years are a short time for a ferry license. So can you extend the license period to, say, 5 years or even longer? Then they may be able to lower their operating costs, and the public will benefit at the end. So please answer my 3 questions.
Undersecretary, thank you, Mr. Wong, for your 3 questions. The first is about the service between Changchao and Aberdeen timetable. The government has an open attitude towards operating such a service. The TD is working together with other government departments to explore the feasibility, and they're looking at the pier facilities and the feasibility of the navigation route and so on. So we've done some work on that front. Perhaps the TD colleagues can supplement on that point. Anyway, we have an open mind towards this, and we will consider it depending on the interest of the ferry operators. Second, property development on top of piers. Last year, we mentioned or tabled such a proposal about development projects on Central Piers number 4, 5, 6 at the PWSC last year, and members of the PwC have raised a number of suggestions and inquiries, and we are now trying to look into that and undertake a market study. And later on, we will be reporting back to the PWSC. With regard to the license period, 3 years, we take note of that, and we are now doing a review and say we would see if the license period can be extended to tie in with property development on top of piers. TT colleague, can you talk about the ferry service between Cheung and Aberdeen? Chairman, about this proposal of ferry service between Cheung and Aberdeen. We've completed our initial assessment, and technically we think that should be feasible. And earlier on, we've already conducted a site visit at the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter with the district councillor who raised the proposal, and we exchanged views with them on the route and the schedule and so on. And we are asking the district councillors to gauge views from the districts on the ferry schedule and service level. And once we received that, we can proceed with the tendering exercise. Mr. Poon Sao-ping. With regard to the special helping measures for outlying island ferry services, and it seems that for every several years we have to provide for hundreds of millions of dollars. Now the fare increase is now 5 to 6%. Does it mean that our policies are not working effectively? Now, with the SHMs, we should not be seeing a fare rise above the inflation rate. The paper also sets about a substantial increase in the labor wages or workers' wages. Do you have specific figures on the extent of the wage rise in the sector? Of course, manpower is tight. Well, and what is the ratio of labor wages in terms of the overall operating costs? Now, we also mentioned about the ferry service between Aberdeen and Cheung. You said you are talking with the district councillors. TD, do you have a timetable on that? You said that you have completed an initial review in terms of the financial arrangements, pier facilities, and so on and so forth. Do you have a more specific timetable to share with us? Yes, Under Secretary, Mr. Poon's first question. I would like to clarify a bit. The ferry operators proposed an increase of 10% in fare increase, and we approved only 5 to 6%. And that means it is below the inflation rate in the past 2.5 years, and also below the increase in the median monthly household income in the past 2 years. So I think we have done our gatekeeping role in this. Second question about workers' wages. When we decided on the fare increase, we have factored in the SHMs provided, and we also have considered whether their operation can be sustainable with such a fare increase. Of course, the passengers have to bear certain responsibilities themselves too. So these are the factors that we considered in deciding on the fare increase. Now, as for the the labor wages in terms of the overall operating costs, TD colleague can supplement a bit. In the past few years, there are a number of marine projects going on, and our information shows that marine workers are seeing a double-digit rise in their wages, over 10%. Well, the actual rate of increase depends on the scale of the ferry operators. The wage makes up around 30 to 40% of their total operating costs, depending on the size of the operation of the ferry operators. Now, as for the timetable of the ferry service between Changchao and Aberdeen, when we have gauged views from the residents, we hope to complete the tendering process in 4 to 6 months, so that the service can commence immediately afterwards. And that the work includes drafting the tender documents, and then we would allow for some time for interested parties to submit tenders, and then we would do the assessment of the tenders, and that would include really a real marine seawater or route testing, and we still have to allow some time for the operators to do advanced works like arranging for octopus payment and so on. And we want to do all these within 4 to 6 months. Mr. Gary Fan, I think that it's not desirable to bundle all these 6 ferry routes together and decide on the fare increase at one go, because these routes operate separately. Now, for NWFF, for the routes to Changchao and Lama, the patronage is high and the fare increase is similar to others ferry routes. Is that fair? Now, I think we have also to reconsider the policy. We are now giving out $190 million in special helping measures. Do the ferry operators still have to propose a fare increase, which is unacceptable to the island residents? Now, ferries are the only means of transport for island residents. Can the government reconsider the policies on ferries? Can new routes be considered to tie in with land transport means? Now, the Complaints Division has received 2 complaints. Changchao residents have lodged a complaint. They asked for a Changchao to Aberdeen ferry service. We conducted site visit in Yuen Long and Tuen Mun, and the residents there told us that they wanted a ferry service operated between Tuen Mun to Hong Kong, to Central, and so on. So can the government consider again resuming ferry services operating around these different places, so that the pressure for fare increase can be alleviated? Can the government think about this? Chairman? In our ferry policies, we take into account that actually the patronage or the market size remains really limited, and sometimes the patronage may go down as well. So we think that the ferry services can best be operated by the private companies rather than the government. And against this background, we want to provide some subsidy, which is dished out on a cost reimbursement basis, so that the operators can sustain their operation. This is the overall direction. The government doesn't want to subsidize routes which are making losses on a long-term basis. And actually, these routes can actually be taken over by some replacement transport modes. So the subsidy policy is built on that principle. So we hope that the ferry operators can continue with their operations, and passengers or residents can still enjoy the services, but then they are asked to bear a certain responsibility with regard to rising operating costs. Now, as to whether new ferry routes could be provided, we have an open mind, and that's that. The important thing is that the ferry operators, there are ferry operators who are interested. For example, for the ferry route from Aberdeen to Changchao, if there are interested ferry operators, well, we're definitely going to help them run this route. Mr. Tan Ka-piu. Some colleagues mentioned about that the rising marine workers' wages are a major cause for heightened operating costs, and there is a double-digit growth in their wages. Is it that high? Really? I met with the NWFF ferry captain, and he has over 20 years experience, and his son, the vessel he is driving is Sunfai, and carries over 1,000 passengers. Now, without OT, his monthly wage is $17,000, but for bus captains, it's just only 14,000 or so. I mean, is it really a cause for a fare rise? For newcomers or new recruits, the monthly wage is only around $12,000. But then we're talking about professional expertise here, and they have to bear with a lot of responsibility as well. Members of the public and island residents are most surprised that $190 million are already being provided for the ferry operators. Now they are now also proposing a fare increase. And there is no guarantee that they will not come back with another fare increase application next year. Now, you have approved for a 5 to 6% fare increase. Have they undertaken to you that this will be the only fare increase application in the next 3 years or not? Under Secretary? I think ferry operators have taken into account their financial situation and the market situation in coming up with this fare increase application. We don't rule out that there may be still substantial changes in the market, but in the absence of that, then there should not be another fare increase. Actually, we've factored in the $190 million in SHMs when we approved the fare increase application. But then we can't guarantee that they will not come back with a second application for fare increase. In their operating costs, actually, the fuel costs is a factor which is rather uncertain. If there are substantial changes in fuel costs, they may have to apply for fare increase again. But the government will play its gatekeeping role. And other factors that have to be considered are the maintenance costs and the workers' wages. These are the three factors which have an impact on the operators' operating costs. There is no guarantee here. But if there is a second application for fare increase, the government will do its gatekeeping role well.
Well, they have already received $190 million of subsidy, and they just need to come up with any reasons, and then they could have a fare increase. Why is it like that? Under Secretary? What I said is that in the next 3 years, if the same operating environment is in place, that with the cost structure and so on, maybe there won't be a need to increase fare. But then, of course, market conditions might change, and that's why I need to make that clear. Mr. Lee Chak-yen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a short question first. 5 to 6% equivalent to how much in dollar terms? Under Secretary, what do you mean equivalent to how much? Let's say you are now giving them $190 million. 5% is equivalent to, you know, how much percent of their operating cost, you know, how much the fare would cover. The percentage of the operating cost, that is. I wonder if the Transport Department could answer the question. You know, how much more revenue can they generate, you know, to make up for the increase in operating cost? Maybe they don't have the figures at hand, but anyway. Mr. So, do you have the figures at hand? Perhaps we could provide information in details later on, because every company is different. But then I'm sure you have an overall figure for each company. You're giving $190 million to 2 companies, 6 ferry routes. So compared to the increase in operating costs, I'm sure you have some figures. But anyway, just now the Undersecretary said that there's a delicate balance involved. I think it's too delicate. It's because you're already subsidizing them $190 million, and then they're increasing fare by 5 to 6%. And there's one thing you said which is really unacceptable. That is, you cannot guarantee that they will not apply for another fare increase. Of course, you can't do that. But can you guarantee that you won't approve another fare increase? You've got all the figures. Because what worries us is that, okay, they are getting this $190 million, and then it's easy for them to become lazy, because they already received a subsidy of $190 million, although you say that amount is totally accountable. But then they know they are covered here with this $190 million. And so how do they make more money? They just keep increasing fare or proposing to increase fare. They will not improve their services or try to bring in more patronage, because there are now people visiting outlying islands, so there's some increase of patronage in that area, and that will help to increase their income. But then you're not considering about generating income, you're just looking at their expenditure, and therefore you accept their fare increase application. It's unfair to residents. You are now subsidizing them, so they become lazy. And then they take it for granted they could just increase fare from time to time, and so there's no need for them to improve services. They don't need to find ways to cut costs and generate more revenue. So they don't have to worry about that at all. Would that become the case? Mr. Lee, Undersecretary. Well, I don't think you need to be too worried about that. Because during the interim, if they apply for further fare increase, we will certainly look at their accounts, all the sources of revenue they have, including non-fare revenue, you know, like advertising revenue and so on. We'll take everything into account, and then we'll see whether there's a big difference between the original estimate and the actual cost and so on before we will consider to approve any fare increase applications. Actually, in the past 3 years, between 2011 and 2014, there's been no fare increase, while operating costs have gone up. But then in 2011, we gave them the special helping measure. So in the past 3 years, they were able to keep fares the same. There's been no increase. From 2014 to 2017, that's the new license period. If actually, we've also taken account the $190 million of SHMs we're giving them. And assuming that market conditions are the same, then they may not need to increase fare. Mr. Michael Tan, the more I follow the discussion, the more I'm worried. You know, I'm in retail business. I have a 3-year tenancy agreement with landlords. If the market goes up, the landlord suffers. Or if the market comes down, then I suffer, and there's no such thing as a guarantee for a 3-year period. Now it seems that the rule is that every 3 years there will be a change. of the contract, and then each party will shoulder its own responsibilities. What if fuel costs soar next year? Then we will have to allow fare increase. But what if fuel costs come down substantially? We ask them to reduce the fare. That's why, Undersecretary, I think you should sign a contract for every 3 years, and once the terms are set, that's it. They can't increase fare, and you can't reduce fare. That has to be that way. Otherwise, I cannot support this proposal. Otherwise, you're guaranteeing them a profit. And if that's the case, what incentive is there for the ferry operators to do better or to try to save costs and generate more revenue? If that's the case, the government might as well take over the ferry services. I think you've totally distorted the principle of leaving things to the free market. You are trying to protect them and shelter them. I wasn't going to say this. I was going to ask a question. That is, in the past 2.5 years, increase is 11.5% for inflation, and now the fare increase is about 5.5% on air freight. Yes, I agree. For self-financing companies, then you should allow increase up to inflation. So over 3 years, you can allow 11.5% of fare increase. Now you only grant 5.5% of increase, so that means they've made a concession of 6%. The 6% should be covered by the $190 million of SHMs. That means they increase the fare by half of the inflation, and the public fund money will subsidize the other half of the inflation increase. So that makes sense. But then what about the total fare revenue of the fare operators? What is it every year? If you could give me that figure, then I would know whether the concession of 6% is equivalent to the $190 million, whether we're overpaying them or underpaying them with the $190 million. I want to find out, so I need the figure I asked for. And what about their total business revenue? You know, they collect rent, they grant concessions for people to sell things. So do you have such figures as well for their other income? Let me answer Mr. Ten's question first before I ask my colleagues to give you the figures. In the new license period, that is in the next 3 years, if there should be major changes in the market, let's say if there's a substantial drop in fuel prices, or there's a substantial deflation in Hong Kong, so operating costs come down substantially, well, there is a midterm review. So there would be a chance to adjust fares. So it's not absolute in the next 3-year period. Has there ever been a midterm review in the past? A reduction in fare. For example, you grant them an increase, but then after a midterm review, fare comes down, or has fare only just gone up? For the SHMs, they only came about not too long ago. In the past 3 years, there was a midterm review. Yes, a lot of the operating costs went up, but in the last midterm review, we did not adjust the fare. Now, my other earlier question, he just passed it to the Transport Department. There is no time. Mr. So, could you please supply the figures now or in writing later? Those figures are important. Yes, I know. Just now, some colleagues asked about $190 million. No, it's how much is it equivalent to for the operating costs? For the 6 ferry routes, Mr. Chairman, the total fare income revenue about $370 million in 2012 to 13. $370 million. Let's not dwell on the figures here. Just give the figures to us in writing, please. Because if they want to adjust the fare, they have to show us the books. Dr. Kwok-hing, I have never seen something so outrageous, Mr. Chairman. Fare increase of 5%. How much the fare increase is in dollar terms, and the officials sitting there daydreaming. And we asked them if they increase the fare, what revenue do they have? They have to dig up the figures. The government's giving them $190 million still. They're asking for fare increase of 5%. 5% is not the issue, but we're using taxpayers' money to slap ourselves. That's what's scary. I just received some letters. ferry services have not improved with the $190 million. I've been to the piers. The hygiene conditions really poor, and the place is filthy. And maintenance and repair of ferries, there's been little improvement over the years. If it weren't for the Lemma tragedy, I'm sure a lot of the life-saving appliances are still not up to standard. The government's giving them $190 million. Services have not improved. And the fare is unreasonably high. You know, the outlying islands belong to the people. But can people get to Lemma Island? Of course not. If they take the ferry service, $35 for an adult, $17 for a child. So for a family of four, several $100s in ferry fares. What is the government doing? What about these ferry service quality? And can we allow the public to enjoy our outlying islands? Nothing is up to scratch. You know, this is a good business. If they don't make enough, they will come and ask for money from us. LegCo will always have to approve it because otherwise fare will go up and fare services won't improve. That's why I think it's better just for the government to take over the services. There's no competition and this model could stay forever. From 2011 review, every few years and every 3 years, you just keep to the same model because there's no opening of the market to competition. It is still the same old operators. Nothing will change in 10, 20 years. What incentive is there? What motivation is there for them to do better? No one works this way, right? You have to come up with a model. If you think it's going to be a commercial operation, if you think it's viable, then let's follow the rules of the commercial market. If there is need for substantial subsidy. Now, I just heard this figure, $370 million, subsidy $190 million. That means for every $2 of business, the government has to subsidize $1. Well, the government might as well take over and use better vessels. They have vessels with black smoke being emitted. How can that be? We keep asking the Environment Bureau to do better in reducing black smoke from vessels and improve air quality, but this is what we see. So I think the government's policy on ferry services is totally unacceptable. How do you monitor their services? What new model could be brought in? How can you improve services? Answer me, please. Undersecretary for ferry services, its room for development is constrained by growth in the market, and there's actually not much growth in the market. In terms of passenger numbers, there's been no increase. There's even a decline. You let him answer, please, because many, you know, in the grassroots sector couldn't afford to take a ferry ride. Now, for island residents, they have monthly tickets. And there's a discount over the single journey fare with a monthly ticket. And, of course, the government provides transport subsidies to the low-income groups who could not afford transportation fares. Mr. Ben Chen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The government has no bargaining power at all when it comes to ferry services. Don't think, members, for a moment that there are many competing to do the business. Actually, people has to beg people to provide the service. Why am I saying that the government has no bargaining power? Because for New World Ferry or any other ferry operators, if they say that, oh, I'm going to suspend service if you won't allow the fare increase, the government will have to beg them to keep up the service because the government doesn't have its own team of vessels. So the public are at the mercy of the ferry operators. On many occasions, we propose to the administration to buy the vessels, and then they can rent the vessels out to the operators. So the government, therefore, has control over the vessels. And then the government would have bargaining power. Today, the ferry operators ask for a fare increase of 5%, 10%. Yes, the government, you could bargain with them, but basically you are begging people to stay in service. So when you review ferry policy, would you consider our proposal, that is buy your own vessels and rent them out? That's one option. Another proposal, we've also raised it before, the use of the $190 million. You use that for repair and maintenance. Now, you give them money, of course, they just take it. They say that fuel costs keep going up, and there's wild fluctuation in fuel prices, so that's why they say they must increase fare. But we've proposed a fuel stabilization fund before. Now, they've always used fuel costs as the primary reason for fare increase, so could you consider a stabilization fund? The third point, whenever there is an increase in ferry fare, the MTRCL would provide this concession fare, by tapping the octopus card. Would they do that too? Now, if they increase the fare, can you extend this concession service by from 6 months to a year? Would you do something to persuade the ferry companies, Undersecretary?
Well, the government has studied whether the government can provide its own fleet, but then huge capital costs would be involved. Our initial calculation is that if we have to buy vessels for the 6 ferry routes, then it will incur a cost of $1.7 billion. If we do that, we can only help save on the depreciation costs. Now, as for fuel costs, labor wages and maintenance costs, that won't be reduced. We still have to involve such huge operating costs, and the pressure on fare rise will stay. So in providing the SHMs, we are asking the taxpayers to provide subsidy, and the similar effect can be achieved, and I think that is a more appropriate approach. Mr. Chen talked about fuel surcharge or fuel subsidy. We have considered the sort of read-across implications in other transport modes. And because fuel costs fluctuates a lot, it's difficult to predict, and we don't want to pass on the additional fuel costs directly onto consumers. Now, as for the concession to be provided by MTR, we will continue to discuss with the MTRC on that. When I read the paper, I find it strange. The largest patronage is in the central to Changchao, and during the morning peak hours, the patronage is below half. That's quite strange and problematic. Maybe your figures are not that accurate. If the occupancy rate is less than half, then should you be using smaller vessels? I think that has to do with operating costs. And if you want to cut the operating costs, you want to carry more passengers. And labor costs also make up a large part of the operating costs. I want you to clarify whether the figures are actually accurate. Second point, many people are criticizing the government for subsidizing the ferry routes. And actually, MTRC passengers are in a way subsidized by the government, although in a different form. Many Kaito operators have said to me that the government seems to be taking care of the 6 routes only, and the Kaito operators are having a difficult operating environment, and they don't have electricity, water supply, and so on. Would you be doing anything to support the Kaito operators as well? Third, now we are thinking about the superstructure on central PS number 456. Now, if you continue with your 3-year licensing policy, then it won't work for them. because they won't be able to rent out their spaces. So can the government consider afresh whether you should review on this present licensing regime? How can we make investment if we are granted license for only 3 years? Now, you mentioned about $1.7 billion in new vessel investment. That's a huge sum. So if I get a license for 3 years, I won't be able to make long-term investment. I'm also from the sector. I know that they have a lot of difficulties in operating their business. Undersecretary, on Mr. Yik's 3 questions, perhaps the TD colleagues can clarify on the figures later. Second and third questions. Second, about Kaito operators. The SHMs are for the 6 outlying island ferry services because they enjoy high patronage, and the island residents don't have other land transport to get to the urban areas. So hence, the choice of these 6 ferry routes. Now, for the other routes, I think we will leave it up to the market to really help out. For the 3-year licensing period, when we consider development on PS number 4, 5, 6, if that can be used for increasing the non-fare box revenue, we are willing to consider whether 3 years are still appropriate. We are willing to look at that and review that. Mr. So, Chairman, we've been monitoring the service between Chengchao and Central. When we talk about the morning peak periods, 7 to 9 a.m., the average patronage is 51%. Afternoon peak period, 6 to 8 p.m., the average patronage is 53%. There are different types of vessels operating on the route, and there is a difference in the patronage. Well, overall speaking, the patronage is around 50%. 3 members have raised their hands, Mr. Leung Chi-chang, Leung Kwok-hing, and Mr. Albert Chan. We still have one more item to cover, so I won't allow for a second round. Mr. Leung Chi-chang. Thank you, Chairman. Fare increase for ferry services, just like other transports, the government is giving all its green light to it. And they are doing it year after year, and we have such similar discussions year after year. As what many colleagues said, you are giving them special subsidy and you are allowing them to raise fares at the same time. And it gives the public the impression that the government is guaranteeing profit for these ferry operators. To us and members of the public, this is most ridiculous. I seldom agree with such remarks of colleagues, but I think this is a fact. $190 million in subsidy. The Undersecretary said that the subsidy is for the labor costs and the maintenance costs. I think for any public transport operators, the greatest costs are labor, maintenance, and fuel costs. So you are subsidizing around 1/3 of their operating costs already. And now you are proposing such a huge fare increase. This is beyond our comprehension. Are they trying to play around with the figures? For many public utilities, say like the Express Rail Link, you've been criticized for your poor monitoring. So how are you doing your monitoring work? Now, as also for the inter-island ferry services, how come that these ferry services are not monitored at all? Mr. Leung Chi-chang raised several questions I would like to clarify. The ferry services are not asking for a fare rise every year. The last fare increase was effected in 2011. And when they're applying for an extension of the license period, they are now asking for a fare increase, a proposed a 10% increase and approved 5 to 6%, considering that we have already given them a subsidy. And we believe that members of the public have to shoulder a certain part, have to shoulder certain responsibilities. Now, as to how we monitor the operation, the TD colleague can supplement. Now, you're talking about the Kai To. Well, there is, in fact, an inter-island route which is being subsidized by the government, but you're talking about other Kaito services, right? Chairman, we do have a stringent mechanism to monitor figures provided by the ferry operators. The TD colleagues and also professionals are also looking at their operating figures, and also for their license period in the next 3 years, their projections, projected figures are all being looked at, studied by experts. And as for the subsidy, it is done by a reimbursement based on actual expenses. Now, for any receipts they submit, they have to be signed by our actuaries, and well, we do have stringent measures to abide by. Mr. Albert Chan. Inter-islands are not equivalent to Kaitos, Chairman. When I read through the papers, I think the financial information is rather sketchy. It is so surprising. Now, you are talking about subsidy of $119 million, but then the income and receipt information are lacking. Last year, what is the income and expenditure? Last year, what are the projected figures for the coming year? Lacking. Well, we can only understand why you are approving a 5% increase based on such figures. You don't have such information, and you come to us, to LegCo, and ask us to trust you and allow for this increase. Well, the Transport Bureau has made mistake after mistake. Well, the XRL is a big problem. How can we trust you anymore? It is totally unreasonable that the figures are lacking. I must criticize or reprimand the government here. That's the way the government has been dealing with such issues in the past several years. LegCo members as smart as Michael Tian, well, they would be able to to point out your mistakes. And you are trying to muddle things through. How can the government deal with things like that? And you're keeping the public in the dark. Well, I take the ferry 3 times or 4 times every week. I am the LegCo member who takes most ferry rides in a week. Well, it's not true that there is no improvement in ferry services compared to a decade ago. Well, there has already improvement. But then 10 years ago, the fare was just $5 or so. And on holidays now, the fare is around $30, $40. And there are usually delays for 5 minutes in the morning. And I have to really run for fear of being late to arrive at the LegCo. So there are often delays of 3 to 5 minutes. The operating models are very archaic too. I have several comments. I've talked about this for many years. There are 2 types of vessels used. I think it's quite fatal. Well, some people are asking for high-speed ferries. Others are satisfied with ordinary ferries. But doing it this way is not cost-effective at all. And people can make arrangements depending on the arrival time of the ferry. And actually, there is only a difference of 5 minutes between the high-speed ferries and the ordinary ferries. And I don't think it works. It's not cost-effective. You can just use one type of vessel. And you are actually using the two types of ferries to take the same group of passengers. That's not cost-effective. And please also cancel the holiday fares. Now, there are more visits to the islands these days because people are visiting the islands rather than mainland. But I think you should really cancel the holiday fares. I suggested way back to establish holiday fares, and at that time there was a difference of between $4 or something or $5 or something. Well, please cancel the holiday fares. Now, if you can't provide information today, please provide the financial information of the 6 ferry routes after the meeting.
Mr. Leung Kwok-hing, well, Carrie Lam lectured us if members don't follow the rules, fine should be imposed, or we should be stopped from attending meetings. Well, but when we talk about being civilized, isn't it based on analysis of detailed information? What sort of a government are you? You keep criticizing members. But what about you? You don't provide data. How are we to do the analysis? Where are the data, please? Can you tell us? Is it the case you've brought the data along, you're just not showing them to us? Mr. So, just now many members asked about the operating cost figures and so on. Have you got the figures with you? Let them answer, please. Mr. So, if a member should like us to provide further information, we will do so after the meeting. When can you provide information? We will take 2 or 3 weeks. We'll give you the information as soon as possible. Yes, please do that. Mr. Leung Kwok-hing, provide us with the paper, with the information first. You're filibustering here. Do we endorse the paper or not to you today without the figures? There's no need for you to give endorsement. But we have to be held accountable. Even if there is no vote, we must still be held accountable, right? The pier maintenance works, how much are you helping them? Exemption of fuel tax, how much is that? Now, exempting the license fees, that's easy. What about the commercial income? Are they doing a good job? Are they benefiting their own people? You know, they rent shops to their own people at a low cost. We don't know. And why is the service always late? You know why? Albert Chen, because the people they know are not yet on board. That's why the ferry is late. I've seen it once. They say, oh, someone is not here yet, so let's hold the service. So someone they know, you know, is not yet on board, so they don't start the ferry. They actually do that. And it's not about you. Carrie Lam and her team, they are encouraging people to behave in a civilized manner, but how much fine should we impose on you? You're wasting 3 weeks of our time. Right? It's your fault. Now, have you ever heard of a case that we approve $190 million of subsidy by the government and without providing us with figures? I've never heard of such an arrangement, because if I want to buy a pencil from my office, I have to provide a receipt. Has Carrie Lam ever asked you to do a better job to behave in a civilized manner? Has she ever said that for German Parliament, if officials do not bring with them the figures, they're not allowed to attend a meeting? Without any information in Germany, you know, officials are not allowed to attend Parliament meeting. Carrie Lam, do you know that? Can you respond to the point about the $190 million, please? For the $190 million of SHMs, the proposal was endorsed by the Finance Committee last July. This item is proposed in response to members' request for further explanation. But of course, if members would still like further information or figures, our colleagues will provide the information later. Thank you. Last one, Mr. James To. Yes, the government must provide the figures in detail. Yeah, I can understand some of the information may be sensitive. It's like when we review fare increase applications from say, China Light and Power, we would study the information at a closed-door session. So we need the information. Maybe for a particular shop, the rent, the market rent is so much, but then they just rent out the unit to their relatives. So they benefit from the lower shop rental, but then taxpayers have to subsidize the operation. Then it's not right. So we need detailed information. Whatever information the administration has, you should provide it all to members. Mr. So, have you heard that? Mr. Chairman, let me add the $190 million of subsidy. Last year, when we came to this panel in the Finance Committee, we have a breakdown of the $190 million, the subsidy for different items. The information has been provided, but if members wish to have the information again, we could provide it. No, I'm not talking about the breakdown. I'm talking about the operation of the ferry company. We want to look at the accounts, what income they have and what expenditure they have. And what their loss is and how much your subsidy is, and at the end still how much loss are they making. So we need to see all the figures, all the books for the past few years, in other words. Under Secretary, we'll see how we could report the figures to members without affecting the commercial operation. Okay, thank you. We've had a detailed discussion on this item. Shall we stop here? Let's move on to the next item. Maintenance of road pavements in Hong Kong. Can we ask the other officials to join us, please? Helping us with our discussion on this item, we have Ms. Judy Chung, Principal Assistant Secretary for Transport and Housing, Mrs. Joanna Kwok, Deputy Director of Highways, Mr. Alfred Yao, Regional Highway Engineer of Highways Department, Mr. Nip, also from the Highways Department. Mrs. Kwok, when you're ready, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members, for allowing us the opportunity to brief you on the maintenance of road pavements in Hong Kong. Now, we have busy traffic, of course, in our road network. For every kilometer of road on Hong Kong, there are about 17,000 vehicles passing through daily. Now we have expanded road network, but then some of the existing roads are aging. It's important to have timely maintenance and repair. It's to ensure that the road network remains safe and reliable. The Highways Department is in charge of maintaining and repairing road networks in Hong Kong. There's an extensive network to be covered that covers bridges, tunnels, slopes, roadside slopes, drainage systems, and so on. Today, we are to brief you on the maintenance of road pavements. Of course, that's an important aspect of our work because the road condition will have a direct impact on road users. Wear and tear of roads may cause, at the very least, convenience, at the most, danger to road users. So we keep up a regular inspection program to make sure a road remains safe and usable. And where we find defects, we will do repair as soon as possible. At the same time, we do preventive repair. In carrying out road maintenance works, we focus on traffic management and noise mitigation. We want to make sure that road works would have minimal impact on residents nearby and on the road traffic condition. Now we have actually tested two ways to repair road. One is thermal patch, the other is precast concrete panels. So for repairing bituminous materials and concrete surfaces, these are the two methods we use. And we are already applying these technologies. Now, can I ask my colleagues to give you a PowerPoint presentation so you know how we repair roads in Hong Kong. And also we could give you more detail about our experience on the two types of repair approaches that I mentioned. Mr. Yip. Let me brief you on our work quickly. I will give you some basic information and I will tell you about our regular inspection and the different types of repair approaches, and perhaps I could give you some case analysis to see what challenges we face and what new repair approaches we're adopting. Some basic information. First of all, in Hong Kong we have about 2,000 kilometers of road in our network. Our maintenance and repair covers road surface, tunnels, bridges, traffic lights and so on. This presentation focuses on road pavement maintenance, which is an important aspect of our work. We have bituminous material and concrete road surface. For the two types of road surface, they have their relative merits. For bituminous materials, it's more comfortable to ride on such road, and where there's wear and tear, it's easier to repair. So for most of our road surfaces, in particular the expressway, we use bituminous materials. As we make a choice of the road surface materials, we have regard to the experience overseas and also our own experience, and we have actually compiled a guideline. As the Deputy Director pointed out, there's high usage of our road surface. On average, 17,000 vehicles per day going through the same stretch of road. So there's some high usage rate. How do we make sure we do a proper maintenance program? We have safety inspection. So whenever we spot any wear and tear that may have an impact on safety, we will arrange for repair to remove such threats. On expressways, we have daily inspection. For non-expressway, for major trunk routes, we do inspection every week. For other roads, there will be inspection at least once every 3 months. Now, apart from wear and tear that has immediate danger, there is gradual wear and tear. Cracks may develop over time and so on, and that may also affect the safety of the road, on the life cycle of the road. That's why every 6 months we will compile statistics so we could plan the major and longer term repair works. For different types of damage, we can tell you what we do to repair these different types of damages. Now, where we see immediate danger, for example, pothole like this, then we will take immediate measures to remedy the defects. For example, we fill up the potholes as soon as possible when these are spotted. And as we point out, there is continuous wear and tear of road surface before it poses a danger. Such a minor wear and tear may still affect the usage of the road. That's why every 6 months we'll collect the information, and then we'll plan major repair works. We'll repave the road mostly, and so we have long-term planning for such works. Now, the challenges we face. There's busy traffic in Hong Kong. So during the day, if we have to take up road surface for a prolonged period to carry out repair works, there will be difficulties. And then, of course, we have residential developments, hotels and hospitals by roadside. If we carry out works at night so that we don't disrupt traffic during the day, then we have to consider the noise-sensitive nature of the neighborhood. So those are two conflicting demands. Here we would like to explain to you what we do. For repaving this tar surface, first we have these major machinery to scrape away the damaged road surface. Near manholes, because we can't use the machine, then we have to clear the damaged road surface manually by workers before we could do the repaving. So for these works, they will take up more road space, and these are also more noisy procedures. Now, for concrete road surface, we have to break away the damaged surface, and then we have to pour concrete. And we must allow a bit of time for the concrete to settle before the surface is strong enough to be reopened to traffic. So these are the conventional methods, and they have certain constraints, and now we're resorting to newer approaches.
For the top road pavements, we have introduced the thermal patcher instead of the milling approach to repair the defects on the road surface. And I'll share with you some cases later on. Now, thermal technology takes a longer time to soften the surfacing layer of the road, so it can't be applied to large areas. It is applied to area of a size less than 100 square meters. And also for concrete road pavements, as I said, we have to allow some time for the concrete to settle and cure, and that takes several days. So today we are introducing more precast concrete panels, and we'll give you more details later on. If we go by that approach, we should have enough space in situ for the parking of the machines. And if there are too many manholes or there are bends on the road, then that might create difficulties. There are now two case studies. One is the Cox's Road. The road traffic is heavy during the day, and we are not allowed to close the lane for too long a time. So when we see that there are road defects, we use the thermal patches, which soften the surface layer, and then we would try to break up the road surface, and then we will add in new bituminous materials, and then do compaction, and then the work is finished, and we can reopen the lane. So this is a new approach using the thermal patcher. The second case is Yi-Wall Street. This is a concrete road pavement. We have to break up the road surfacing first, and then we have to lay a layer of concrete. And different from the traditional approach, we have prefabricated concrete panels at the suppliers' factories, and then we would lift it up and then place it on the road surface, and then we would fill up the gaps through the fast hardening concrete, and then the works are completed. 6 members have already raised their hands. The meeting will end at 10:30. I can extend it to a little bit later, 7 together. Wong Kwok-hing, Fricky Yik, Jeffrey Lam, Poon Siu Ping, Chen Han Pan, Che Wai Chun, Wu Chi Wai, and Paul Chair. Altogether 8 members. 3 minutes each. Sorry, schedule is rather tight. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Thank you, Chairman. I support these 2 new approaches proposed by the Highways Department. I have 2 questions for the administration. One is that the maintenance works or repair works on roads are undertaken by public utilities. What is the percentage of the total number of repair works on roads? What we fear most is that one company will dig up the road after another because of the maintenance of their facilities. That's going to create a lot of nuisance. If we can do a better coordination work, then the nuisance can be minimized. So what is the percentage of work in relation to coordinating these public utilities works? I'm worried also about the road safety, especially at flyovers, the bends. There have been accidents where cars actually went over the flyovers down to the roads beneath. What about the barriers, the railings? How it works, the progress of the works on that front. Now, today we are talking about maintenance of road pavements. your several questions may not be directly related. Well, Chairman, please let them answer first. Mrs. Kwok, please. I'd like to thank Mr. Wong for your 2 questions. The Highways Department coordinates works on road pavements by different public utilities. Hong Kong is a densely populated city. There are indeed many public utilities having their facilities underground, and indeed there is a need for them to dig up the road for maintenance works and expansion works. We have strived to first understand that there is a real need for such maintenance works, and also we would ask them to liaise with other public utilities to minimize the need for digging up the roads. As for the percentage of such works in the overall Highways Department's maintenance works, we don't have such figures. As for the barriers of roads, well, there are different designs adopted depending on the different roads. Mr. Frankie Yik, you said that there is a limited time window for repair works at night. When we go to South Korea and Japan, we see that they carry out works overnight, and the works are completed in the morning. And I don't get it. Why is that in commercial districts they are subject to the EPD regulations and works can't be carried out? Now, say for in the areas like Admiralty and Central, nobody lives there. So why aren't you allowing the works to be carried out in night time? Second, how come that after a heavy rain there are so many holes on the road pavement? Is there any solution to the problem? Thirdly, Highways Department officials, can you give some information to us on overseas practices? Well, the road signs on repair works are just placed immediately before the sites where the repair works are carried out. In overseas experience, I mean, they place such sites well before the works area. Mrs. Kwok, as you can tell from the PowerPoint, we face tremendous challenges because Hong Kong has heavy traffic, and very often the maintenance works are carried out during night time. Especially in commercial districts, we carry out such works during night time as well. Well, for some commercial districts, there are still may still be inhabitants, so they are still subject to the environmental regulations. Now, second question on why there are defects, especially after heavy rain. Well, in 2013, the rainfall volume rose by 50% compared to 2012. The heavy rain may bring down some particles and will hit the road. And so for road surface which are already having some defects, the situation will deteriorate. So that's why the situation will deteriorate after heavy rain. Third question, Mr. Yik asked about overseas practices. Well, the road signs on repair works are placed well before the site of the works. In Hong Kong, we do have a set of guidelines on how notification should be made when there are repair works on roads. I think you are not doing enough. I want you to do a review because it's going to be very dangerous, especially on expressways. can you make adjustments, or if you place it just 100 or 200 meters in front of the site of the repair works, that won't suffice. Well, we will supervise the contractors to make sure that they abide by our guidelines. Mr. Jeffrey Lam, I noticed that in slide 2, there is a photo of the paving of roads, or resurfacing of the pavement. Well, it seems to us that the contractors can do whatever they like. For 3 lanes, they may close off 2 lanes, and there is 1 lane of traffic allowed. So, entire Pole Road on Saturday, I noticed that the situation was undesirable. There was heavy traffic congestion. Do they really need to do that? On that day, 1 lane was closed off, and at that lane there was no works going on at all. So can you make better arrangements with the contractors? Also, Mr. Yik also mentioned about potholes on road surface. There are 3 types of roads as far as inspection is concerned. There are daily inspections, once every 3 months, and so on. I don't think a weekly inspection is enough. Problems may arise during the week. Would there be a hotline where people can call up to report on pothole cases? Well, if that happens, and you can send staff to deal with the problem immediately. Lastly, after the pavement has been resurfaced and markings have to be done again, then that's all right. But then the white markings may become obscure and fade away. And for other roads, there may be a repainting program, and the white markings are really too thick, and then that would create inconvenience for drivers driving over such markings. In arranging for lanes to be closed, the subcontractors have to approach the TD and the police to map out a suitable traffic arrangement. Why is it that there are cases where 2 lanes among 3 are closed off? There may be a need to make sure that the traffic flows smoothly. But in any case, such traffic arrangement has to get the approval from the police and the TD. Well, there are cases where it seems that no works are being carried out on lanes closed off. There may be trials of vehicular flow being tested out, and well, so I can't give you a general comment on that. And also about the distance between the repair road signs and the repair works sites. We have to look at our manpower situation, and we can't inspect the roads all the time continuously, and we depend on the public to call us up, say, through via 1832 and to report on road defects. And we have a service pledge, and i.e. upon the receipt of such reports or complaints, we would within 48 hours carry out the repair works. Mr. Peng Xiaoping, about the thermal patcher and the precast concrete panels. I think these are very positive and good approaches. Compared to the traditional methods, have costs risen or gone down? How many thermal patches are there now? And what about the durability of the road pavement after being reserved by these patches, do you have a target on further using such machinery? Thank you, Chairman. For the thermal patches, compared to the traditional method, the cost is around 1.5 times of the traditional method. Why are we still using it? Even if it is more costly, it does have its own merits. As far as noise is concerned, it emits less noise. The costs seem to be higher. This is just an initial period of applying for it. We have to make some capital investment as time goes by. The costs can be spread out, and the difference in the cost as compared to the old method will go down. As for the durability of the road pavements, both methods are similar in terms of in this regard. Can we apply it to more areas? Well, there are constraints with this model because we will be using a thermal plate to soften the bituminous material. We can't apply it to a large area. And also, the process takes longer. So at any specified period, it can't work on too large an area. So that can't be applied extensively. Around bends, well, that may not be effectively applied to.
Concrete road surface, is the cost also up by 1.5 times? Or is it cheaper? For the precast concrete panels, yes, it's more or less the same scale. But those are two different approaches. Perhaps Mr. Nip may have something to add on the cost of precast concrete panels. If I may add, for precast concrete panels, it depends on the actual situation because the size of the panels may differ. But very roughly speaking, it's several times more expensive than the conventional method. For the difficult areas, it could be 4 to 5 times higher. For the easy areas, maybe 2 to 3 times more expensive. While some members still wish to speak, but that will take us beyond 10:45. We need to hand over the venue to the next meeting, so I have to shorten the speaking time 2 minutes each for the remaining members, please. Mr. Ben Chan, Mr. Tony Jem, Paul Jie, and then Tan Kapil. I'll draw the line there, okay? Mr. Ben Chan. So those who speak first have an advantage. I want to talk about the low noise materials. Now, the administration has done some studies before. They have tested the use of low noise materials. So what is the results? Now, low noise materials has become an excuse for the Environmental Protection Department not to put up noise barriers. But I know that for low noise materials, they're not so durable. So when you use low noise materials, how durable are they compared to the conventional materials, and how do you maintain such a road surface? Yes, Mr. Chen is right. For low noise materials, it's actually like a friction layer. For expressway, this is the standard materials to be applied. It would help to reduce the noise caused by frictions between the tires and the road surface, and therefore it could lower the noise level. But then for such materials, they could only be used on road surface where there's a lot of moving traffic. For smaller roads or local roads, very often there's stop and go involving vehicles, or there may be sharp bends. say, coming out from a small road to a major trunk road, there's shaft bends to be maneuvered, and then there would be a substantial wear and tear if this material is used. And when there's wear and tear, of course, the noise would be even worse. So the Environmental Protection Department is now testing the material. There is not yet a final conclusion. Mr. Tony said, no time. Mr. Tung Che, can I ask for written information? Of course, thank you. Mr. Tony Che. Now, of course, road repair maintenance are important. I see that the expenditures are more or less the same as that for last year. Does it mean that there's higher cost effectiveness because we have more roads now? And then we're doing a lot of infrastructure works that involves diversion of traffic. So who's responsible for the repair maintenance of the road surface when there's diversion? Is it the highways department or the contractors? For example, West Kowloon, there's frequent diversion, and it changes almost every week. So who's in charge of the repair maintenance? And road design, I think you have to consider that. Sometimes I find that for a particular alignment, the manholes are usually always placed at the point where the car wheels will be. So why do you put it there? I think that will cause a faster wear and tear. And then noise, the noise is strange when cars pass through by those manholes. Last year and this year, the repair maintenance costs are more or less the same. It's because for the new roads compared to the existing roads, they only account for a small percentage of our total road network. Existing roads, about 2,100 kilometers. For new roads, just another 20 kilometers of roads are new, actually. Traffic diversion, you're talking about when there's a lot of works going on the roads. So if the roads fall within the works site, then the contractors have to maintain the road surface and make sure they're suitable for use. Mr. Wu Chi-wai? I see that, yes, the costs are more or less the same, but for these two new approaches, they cost more. Does it mean that in a coming year, you could reduce the number of repairs? That's the first question. Second question, the bituminous materials. We asked about that last time. For 15% of the cases, you will recycle the bituminous materials. For the rest, are you going to dump it in the landfills? Mrs. Kwok. Second question, I will defer that to Mr. Nib. First question, the costs are similar. Well, our spending is just an estimate for the time being. It really depends on the wear and tear situation on our roads in the coming year. And that depends, of course, to a large extent on how much rain there will be. But as I said, there is not much new road service added to our road network. For the contractor, the thermal patcher, and precast concrete panels, that's covered by the contract. Now, we have made reference to the overseas experience and the local experience. In some cases, we have gradually added the 15%, increase of 50% to 30%. For the remaining 70%, that means we could have a 30% recycling rate of bituminous materials. For the 70% materials, the information given by the contractors that we're still building new roads. Now, although the road design is such that we could only allow 30% of recycled materials, but then if they're building so much more new road, they could use a lot of it. And then there will be temporary roads that may use the same material as well. So you can say at the moment there's no wastage at all. So they're not going to the landfill, in other words. Mr. Porter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the figures, 3/4 is a bituminous materials, 1/4 concrete. Now, in the paper, they've explained the merits of concrete. In terms of the construction and repair costs, what is the difference between the two types of materials? That's the first question. Secondly, in the long run, to allow for smoother operation, whether in terms of construction or repair in future, can we keep to one material? Yes, it's true that concrete has certain merits, but can bituminous materials replace concrete altogether? So we don't need two sets of materials, two sets of repair approaches, and two sets of equipment. Wouldn't that be more cost effective? And if we switch from concrete to bituminous materials, would there be any difficulties? Well, we're using two different types of materials because of the different traffic flow, speed of vehicles, and the conditions. And that's why we choose one material over the other. For bituminous materials, there is less vibration. So on expressways, we will use primarily bituminous material. There will be more pores, actually. Is there any way that bituminous materials cannot replace concrete altogether? Well, it depends on in some spots where there's constant erosion by chemicals, like by bus stops, or where a road is frequented by heavy vehicles, or where there's a lot of braking of vehicles. Then if we use bituminous materials, the wear and tear is much faster. That's why in some places we still need to use concrete. So it can't be one replacing the other. We have to keep the two different types of materials because they play different roles. Mr. Tan Ka-pil, I'm very concerned about safety inspection. There have been reports that complaints have been lodged, but still no inspection is carried out. And even if inspection is carried out, they say nothing is wrong, like the April 24/7th report at the Oriental Daily. So eventually, a motorist was injured, and then they said that they already told the police there's something wrong with that section. The contractor checked, there was not a problem, but actually, eventually they did a second inspection and found indeed there was iron plate stuck in the road, but they took away the iron plate without filling up the pothole. So damage on the defects on the road is one cause to traffic accidents. So how do you deal with it? Now, whenever there's a traffic accident, however minor or major, would you then at the first instance inspect the road surface to see that if there's a problem? On repairing road surface, we attach great importance to it, in particular to safety inspection. As I explained, there may not be enough safety inspection, but as soon as we are made aware of any defect, we would arrange for repair as soon as possible. Now, whenever there's an accident, would the police inform you there's an accident at that spot, and then you would go and check the spot, or would the contractor would do the inspection, or do you have to wait till the victim complains before you look at it? Is there some sort of mechanism? Now, contractors, of course, do inspections. Our colleagues would also monitor the contractors, and they would do spot checks. But after an accident has taken place, is there a mechanism for you to check the site at once? It depends on the types of accident. Thank you. Okay, members have all asked the questions. But for some road surface, actually, there is frequent repair. For example, the entrance to the Cross Harbour Tunnel, the left lane, because that's used by heavy vehicles. And in hot weather, the bituminous materials may become deformed. So I think you have to consider for such roads where it's frequented by where they're frequented by heavy vehicles, maybe you should change them into concrete road paving. Okay, we have no more time. That's the end of the meeting. Date of next meeting, let me remind you, the 23rd of June, 8:30. Thank you.